Welcome to Passion for the Pastime, where baseball lives 24/7, 365. Catch conversations with beat writers, broadcasters, current and former players of all levels. Now here's your host,
Walter Balsetta. Whoops, I fumbled. I got to get out of here.
Walter Balsetta.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to Passion for the Pastime. Hope everybody is doing well. I think this thing is off the ground. I'm not sure what happened with that intro video, but what's up, everybody? Welcome to Passion for the Pastime on the YouTube channel, and we are a couple of days away from the end of the year. Literally tomorrow is the final day of the year, so we'll get into some New Year's resolutions for myself and also for the Giants. Speaking about the sports implications as to what they need to do moving into 2025. And there's still a lot to be done just in this offseason alone. So welcome in, everybody, to Passion for the Pastime. My name is Walter Adames. If you don't know me by now, I work currently at KMBR and work as a producer for the midday show. And last year started to get my reps in doing the Giants pregame show, the Giants warm-up on the weekends. And also had my podcast, Rounding Third and King, that, again, I still got to get some of those interviews on the YouTube channel here so you guys can listen to some of my work that I've done in the past with interviews, Bob Kendrick, with Javier Lopez, Hunter Pence, and the likes as well. So we'll definitely get them on this podcast, on this medium, on the YouTube channel, which just started right as the winter meetings went down. And Buster Posey really gave us a lot to kind of digest, a lot to get into with that first episode with the Giants going in and signing Willy Adames for that. What was it? It was a 7-year, 8-year. I'm drawing a blank on the Willy Adames contract now. But $182 million deal. I believe it was a 7-year contract for Willy Adames, 7 years for $182. And that was a big splash that happened right before the winter meetings took off. And we thought that this was going to be a different regime, a different feel. And it still kind of feels that way. But with everything that had just transpired with Corbin Burnes, it was a little bit of a shock that the Giants didn't get their guy when it comes to the pitching aspect, because pitching is something that the Giants have been able to acquire at ease over the Farhan era and even dating before that. I mean, pitchers would love to come to San Francisco, so they didn't land Corbin Burnes, which was a big shocker. Not to minimize anything with Willy Adames coming in for the San Francisco Giants, but it is a little bit of a blow because not only did the Giants not get their guy in Corbin Burnes, he also goes to a divisional opponent. I wouldn't necessarily call the Diamondbacks a rival, but it is what it is. The Diamondbacks, the Padres, and the Dodgers are currently ranked above the Giants, in my estimation, in the National League West. And when it comes to the wild card standings, I mean, that move is going to have huge implications on the Giants. So then the question is begged to be asked is, well, what is the direction? What is the direction of this team? I was talking with Derek Papa on the emergency show. If you guys didn't catch any of that, go ahead and check out the YouTube channel. Spoke with him on Saturday, emergency show, because we had the news breakdown because the Corbin Burnes news went down late Friday night. And I did my, as Derek put it, my taxi cab confessions video with me breaking the breaking news in the front seat of my car. And then we did a show. We did a show on Saturday and talked with Derek Papa, and we kind of came to the conclusion of maybe this 2025 season is going to be more developmental than we originally anticipated with that signing of Willy Adames. So we'll definitely get into it at 2:15. We'll be talking with Eric Engle of the Locked On Podcast Network, where he does the postcast for many of your favorite Bay Area teams. He's currently in the mix with the Warriors. I believe he'll be doing a postcast tonight following Monday Night Football with the 49ers and the Lions. We'll get his thoughts on that as well. But a lot going on there, and he also does every game during the MLB season for the Giants, the postcast for the Locked On Network, Eric Engle. So he'll be stopping by here in a couple of minutes, in the next 10 minutes or so. So we'll talk to Eric and get his thoughts on the Giants offseason, because now the question is, what's the direction of the Giants and where are they going to go? Because we heard early in, and you kind of figured it was not necessarily lip service, but it was, you didn't want to, you're playing poker, right? You didn't want to show your hand. You didn't want to show your cards. So when Buster Posey and Zach Manassian were asked about their starting pitchers, they said that they were confident in their ability, and they thought that they were going to take strong stride or big steps forward. Here's the exact quote from Andrew Baggerly. Posey said, "We believe in our young arms and feel like they are in a position to take some big steps forward. We will continue to look on the offensive side for players that give us a chance to score runs in multiple ways." Now, if you look back on that comment and see how things have transpired, and obviously this is easy to kind of have revisionist history, right? Just to kind of go back and look at what was said to us and what has transpired. And with everything that Susan Slusser has been reporting on the matter with Corbin Burnes, it sounds like Corbin Burnes and the Giants weren't even in the same ballpark. Like, it sounded like that initial talks happened at the general manager meetings before the winter meetings, and that was about it. There was an offer on the table. We don't know how much that offer was. We don't know how long it was. I speculated that, being with what was being reported with Jon Heyman, is that there was a team that went above and beyond the biggest contract that was being offered. I suspected that was the Blue Jays, and that was kind of the general consensus around baseball, especially according to Jon Heyman, was that it was and I think Bob Nightingale also reported on it, it was an 8-year deal worth $250 million from the Blue Jays. So, okay, we got that part out of the way. They were the team that offered the most money, right? And then it was also reported by Jon Heyman that Corbin Burnes, or that another team, it didn't specify who, but that another team offered the highest AAV. That's where I kind of got in there, was like, okay, well, if it was the Blue Jays and the Giants, well, then that would lead it to be the Giants, right? So then what would that number be? Highest AAV. We put together some numbers. I put it at 5 years for $200 million for Corbin Burnes, because that also matches what Susan Slusser's report of the Giants didn't go above the Diamondbacks, which was at 210, right? So $200 million, 5 years. That's what I suspected it being. But then further reports started coming out, and that the Giants weren't deep into conversations with Corbin Burnes, that it never really got off of the initial conversation stage. So that's a little bit troublesome. And then you look at Corbin, or you look at Jon Heyman and what he's been reporting, sounded like the second team in the running was orange and black, but it wasn't the Giants. It was actually the Baltimore Orioles. So then now you start to put together the pieces and you start to see, okay, so what is the true direction of this Giants team? Because you are trying to go and get Corbin Burnes. That tells me that this Giants team and this Giants front office were thinking that this was going to be a competitive group, that this was going to be a team that can vie for a playoff spot. But being that now you hear those comments and saying that the Giants are comfortable with their young pitchers and think that they're going to take big steps forward. So is this going to be another developmental year for the Giants? I think that they have a lot of young talent on this team, not only in the starting pitching market or in the starting pitching room, in their rotation, and also, I mean, in their bullpen. They have a lot of young studs in there that can potentially take strides. I mean, how high are you on Jordan Hicks? I mean, we know that he fizzled out in the middle of summer, and then he got reduced down to a bullpen role, spot starter role, and that was pretty much it for Jordan Hicks. But this was his first season as a starter, so is he able to build up that arm strength to be a starter for the Giants in a rotation? Then you look at Robbie Ray. Robbie Ray didn't come in to the fold until, I believe, late July, maybe early August. And then he started getting some pitches, some starts. I believe he only had maybe 9 starts on the season, and some of them were good, some of them were atrocious. So, but you also have to keep in mind that he is getting further and further removed from Tommy John surgery. So how does that project out? Is he going to be a top end of the rotation type pitcher? And then you look at your constants that you have. You have Logan Webb, and I say constants, I mean constant, and that's Logan Webb. By the way, I don't know if this is foreshadowing or not. I hope not, but dropped my Logan Webb bobblehead the other day when I was cleaning up after the holidays, and his left foot, left shin. Yeah, it's in my hand right now. So hopefully that's not a forecast of anything that's going to happen with Logan Webb into 2025. So, but anyways, so you have Logan Webb as your starter, your number 1 guy. That's who you have in the rotation. Then you have Hayden Birdsong, that I feel that I am a little bit more higher on than Kyle Harrison. Kyle Harrison needs to take big strides forward. But that again, you have a lot of question marks in this starting rotation. So is this going to be a team that is developmental, right? Is this going to be a year of development for this team? That's only the pitchers, because I didn't even mention the offense, to where you're having another year with Tacky, I murdered Logan Webb. Thank you, appreciate it. I'll get to the chat here in a little bit here. But so you look to the pitchers, we know what the concerns are there, but then you go to the offense and you look at Elliot Ramos, and you look at Tyler Fitzgerald, and you look at Jung-Hoo Lee, and you start to kind of see, all right, some of these guys, I mean, Patrick Bailey, you want to throw him in there as well. The only ones that you can really count on to be there is Willy Adames and Matt Chapman, the 2 guys that the Giants put out the most dough for this at the end of this season and this offseason. That is kind of the only help that you really have, the only consistencies that you have in the offense. So again, we were talking about the pivots last episode with Derek Papa. We were talking about potential pivots on the breaking news. What can the Giants do? It's been reported by Susan Slusser that Pete Alonso can possibly be an option for the Giants, that they may be in hot pursuit of the first baseman. Is that something that you want to do? Because also, you just factor in all the money aspect to it, in that, okay, if they didn't go this high for Corbin Burnes, would they go this high for Pete Alonso, who's 20? I think he's entering his year 30 season. And then you're going to lock him up for how many seasons are you going to be able to do? I think that, again, with Corbin Burnes, I don't know if it was just the opt-outs that was the turnoff. We'll get Eric Engle's thoughts on that as well. But if it was the opt-outs, I feel like there's no way that you can sign Pete Alonso to a long-term deal without including an opt-out in the early portion of it. And I know that we were kind of happy in that, okay, well, if it was a 2-year opt-out with Corbin Burnes, yeah, he doesn't want to be a Giant. That's bad business. And maybe they dodged a bullet with Corbin Burnes because that was, a long period of time with the Diamondbacks, 6 years, 210 with the opt-out after 2 years. But if you're not going to operate in that way, I don't think that there's any way that Pete Alonso is going to come to the San Francisco Giants. I would love to have him there, because we see what you have at first base, and you see what is coming along in the pipeline for the Giants with Bryce Eldridge. But you don't want him to be rushed. And Buster Posey has said that time and time and time again, that they're going to take their time with their prized possession of Bryce Eldridge. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to have Pete Alonso come in here for a 5-year, for a 6-year deal. And then after, when Eldridge, because also Eldridge can play the outfield too. So if that's a need and you put him out there and you have both of those bats in the lineup, that would be ideal. But then also, Pete Alonso can go ahead and DH. Bryce Eldridge can go ahead and DH. There's all these possibilities with the DH that brings to the National League side of things now, that I think that we don't necessarily think about, because the DH is relatively new to the National League. So we kind of forget about that spot. And I think the Giants have forgotten about the DH spot for many years since it's come over, because they haven't had anyone with thump in that position that can drive in runs, and Pete Alonso can be that guy. So it'll be really interesting to see what ends up happening with the Giants. Pete Alonso, I mean, you also have to factor in, he turned down a 7-year, I think the last contract extension from the Mets was a 7-year, $158 million deal. And that puts you just under 22 million AAV. My thought process is that maybe the Giants can go 5 years. I believe it was 5 years. My math might be not mathing, but 5 years, 140, 145. And then I think it was 145. And that would put him above the highest AAV amongst all starting pitchers, or I'm sorry, all first basemen, would be a slight edge above Bryce Harper at the 27.5. It would put him at 28 mil AAV for Pete Alonso. Does that get it done? Because you know that something astronomical needs to happen for a Scott Boras client, whether it's the richest overall contract or if it's the highest AAV. So you figured that's the direction that you're going. Are you comfortable with doing that with Pete Alonso? I would have been more comfortable with Corbin Burnes because you know his stuff and you know this ballpark plays to pitchers, but we'll have to see the direction that the Giants ultimately end up going. And then also, I mean, the starting pitching market, there's still a lot of guys out there. There's still Jack Flaherty. There's still Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer. I mean, you name it. There's a couple of guys that are available via trade. So what is the pivot for the Giants and how do they kind of save the offseason? It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to believe that you're saying that in that saving the offseason being that how it started with Willy Adames, but there hasn't been anything else that has happened. Are they going to bring in some potential other bats? Is that the priority? And do the Giants see their starting pitchers currently, the youth movement, do they see them as taking true big strides in being major leaguers? So let's shift the conversation to our guy, Eric Engle. I used to talk to him all the time in the bullpen and used to give him a hard time. I miss having those conversations in the bullpen. Not too much, though. Not too much. This is fine. I have a conversation with him once every three months. So that's about as good as I can do here. Before I bring in Eric Engle, let me go into the YouTube chat and say hello to all you Pastimers. Got to throw this up there because Tacky, I think you erased the comment, but it's still in there. So Tacky, I see you. What's up, bro? How you doing? Welcome in. Booked a non-Canadian. Yes, Tacky does not like Canada for some reason. I don't understand why he doesn't like Canada, but pretty interesting there. Let's see here. Santander is from Venezuela. Lots of Giants are. Yeah, I don't know if that's a deciding factor or not. Mike, what's up, dude? Welcome into the chat. But Santander, he'd be great because he does bring what Pete Alonso doesn't, in that he is a switch hitter, and you add a lefty to your lineup, and you can potentially do a platoon system in left and right with Elliot Ramos and Mike Yastrzemski on days that you're playing a lefty and a righty. So I would like Santander. I just don't know what the dollar amount is for Santander. I think I saw the latest that the Mets were interested in Santander as well. So let's see if they go Santander, and then that opens up the window for the Giants to get to get Pete Alonso. Otis, what's up, bro? What's up, man? Good to see you in the chat again. Welcome back. Appreciate you stopping by, man. Let's see here. Tacky. Tacky always drops some good lines, man. Some of them aren't family friendly. Let's see here. Rockin' New Era. What's up, bro? Hey, dude, Rockin', you got to tell me what's going on in Disneyland, bro. What's your churro count up to? I need to find out. I definitely need to know what the churro count is up to, how many rides you get on also. Otis wants to chime in. Giants are really set on getting Burnes when they could have gotten Bueller, Patrick Sandoval, Chaminade. Yeah, I know. And that's why I think it's so much of a shocker, and it hurts a little bit, because I thought that they weren't going to do the Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani, run around and let other guys go off the board. I thought that they were going to close the deal on this, but it sounded like it wasn't even close to that. So yeah, a little disturbing in that regard. EB, what's up, man? Good to see you. Good to see you in here. once again. Rock a new era. What did he say here? Walter is like, I don't care if Copes is on. No. I like that Copes is on. They're doing the pregame show, huh? I forgot about that. I forgot that the 49ers are playing tonight, to be honest, until I started giving the open, the introduction to Eric Engle. I completely forgot that the 49ers are playing. I'm dialed in to Giants offseason and Giants baseball, man. Let's see here. All right, we got more on Alonso. He's going to start next to Arson Judge. Yeah, how about that, Rockin'? We got a lot of almost were Giants. A good lineup there. A good, really good, solid lineup that is potentially a playoff team. What's the story with Pete Alonso? We'll get into that, Jim. But yeah, the Giants might be pivoting to bring in a bat. That's the story, and it could be Pete Alonso. So we'll definitely get into that. Giants need a power at first base and power in left field. Yes, agreed with that. All right, so let's go ahead. Hey, Danny Dunn is in the chat. What's up, Danny? He told me he wasn't going to be here, but now he's here, and I love it. Ask Eric about his new snowboard injury. Yeah, we'll definitely do that. And Eric is chuckling. I've left him in the green room way too long. Let's go ahead and bring in Eric Engle of the Locked On Podcast Network. You can hear him after every Bay Area sports game, pretty much Warriors, Giants, Niners, you name it, on the Locked On Postcast show. And I welcome in my guy, Eric Engle. And I was hoping that you were going to be in a cast today, bro.
No cast, but I actually was on the mountain yesterday. Funny enough. And yeah, it's been a okay start to the season. A little too much rain, not enough snow, but it's kind of like the Giants offseason too. Some slow trickles coming in, but we're just waiting for that, that surge of for me, snowboarding, I'm waiting for that storm surge. And for the Giants, they're waiting for that free agent surge. You just can't get over that hump, it seems like, in recent years.
Yeah, man, it's been really tough as a Giants fan, just to see all these guys that you had the potential of signing, and this one hurt I would say not the most, because Aaron Judge and all that, you remember how all that situation was, and we were all high on that possibility, and we thought that it was going to happen, and Corbin Burnes being the latest victim of that, with him going to the Diamondbacks. I'll get your thoughts on him joining that team, but just do you think that this was a huge miss on the Giants' part in not going above? Like, it just blows my mind that they didn't even offer more than what the Diamondbacks were bringing to the table.
Yeah, and that was a huge mistake going into it, because this is a guy who in the offseason lives in Scottsdale, Arizona. He has a family in Arizona. That's got to be a huge, enticing piece of this puzzle that Burnes wants to, I would assume, just like any other person with a family and kids, wants to be able to spend time with them during the season. If you can do that, you can live essentially at home and spend half your baseball season with your family. Why wouldn't that be enticing? You have to do something to draw him away from that. He wanted to come back out west. That was widely reported. But it was, a lot of people said maybe the Angels would creep in since he was a Bakersfield guy. But hey, Arizona is not that far away from Bakersfield either. That's still, relatively the same geographic area. It's not too far of a plane ride. And I think the Giants have kind of shown in recent years that they're willing to match those other top offers, but they're not willing to exceed them. And I think that's something that's going to have to change if you want to bring in a big time free agent like Corbin Burnes. And maybe there is a little bit of greediness that Giants fans have, in the sense of the team needs so much improvement that there's no one free agent that's going to make this team all of a sudden a contender. And so you want them to go and sign, 2-3 big names in the offseason. But when you look at their, at how the Giants spend in payroll and stuff like that, it's kind of, I think it's unrealistic to expect them to go and make 3 big free agent signings in one offseason. I mean, when's the last time this team did that? I literally cannot remember an offseason where they nailed down 3 huge free agents to bring in. And I think if you had landed Adames and Burnes, and then let's say they sign Alonso, theoretically, I think that would just be, that's a pipe dream of an offseason. And I think we kind of maybe got a little bit carried away since I know I personally felt like Adames was not going to go to the Giants. I thought that was, I was shocked when he ended up signing here. I thought he would for sure go elsewhere. And once that first domino fell, I think I felt like a lot of other Giants fans did, that this was going to be the start of a big momentum shift where the Giants were just going to get everyone they were going after. And obviously, the next guy they try and bring in doesn't work out.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I mean, you talk about the offseason to where they brought in a lot of guys. It wasn't really a staple of the Giants, even when they were winning championships. That wasn't what their calling card was. Their calling card was building through the farm system, building within your organization. And I mean, it's hard to replicate that. I mean, how many teams try to do that? You look at what the Astros had to do for like 15, 20 years, the Cubs, what they had to do for multiple seasons in tanking and trying to get the best possible players that they can bring into their organization. It ultimately got them a championship. And San Francisco, they're not a team that's going to go down that route. I'm not saying that, but things have to get better with their farm system, right? And maybe that's where the things are going now with this new regime, with Bobby Evans being a part of it, with Zach Manassian being here. He might be more on closing the deal on free agents, but he was part of scouting, right? He was part of scouting as well. So Buster Posey, I mean, that whole new regime, we thought that it was going to be a little bit different because of how it started this offseason. And I was completely taken by shock because I did not think that they were going to get Willy Adames. I was already set on Ha-Seong Kim, and he's potentially still an option for the Giants moving forward. But I thought that the Giants were going to kind of not really do a lot this offseason, but then they go and get the number probably would have shot up a little bit, right? So you look at what Juan Soto got, and you look at Willy Adames at 7-year, 182. It looked like a steal of a contract. But just going back to that, because I think they attempted to do that last year with Matt Chapman, with Jorge Soler, with Blake Snell, and obviously Chapman and Snell were the bigger, high-profile guys. But it came in late in the offseason. It worked out good for Matt Chapman to be here locked in long term now, and he's kind of morphed into this leader of the Giants team. But so let's look at what has happened with Corbin Burnes not coming here and those comments that Buster Posey made, that they feel comfortable with their young pitching and they think that they're going to take big steps forward this season. I mean, how confident are you in the Giants' young pitching staff right now as it currently stands, being that the expectation is that no one else is coming in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all depends on Robbie Ray, honestly. I mean, the young guys, it's a crapshoot. You still got Whisenhunt down there. You got Black. You got, who knows what Keaton Wynn's going to look like this year if he's actually healthy. I really do think Keaton Wynn, obviously no one really wants to hear this, but I do think that Keaton Wynn will get another chance this year just because of how injured he was last season. Remember, he was on the injured list starting in spring training. So he never really had any period of the time last season where he was healthy. And he did show moments of where he was kind of like a mini Logan Webb at the beginning of the season. He had a really high ground ball rate. He does do some things well. Again, but that's not the basket you want to put all your eggs into for sure. But there's options that the Giants have. And like you said, I am also very high on Hayden Birdsong. I think he has the best stuff of anybody in this Giants pitching staff aside from Logan Webb. I think that his fastball is just insane with the movement that it has and the velocity, and that curveball that he has is just absolutely devastating. So I think Birdsong is poised to take the biggest step forward of the group, but I wouldn't rule out the Giants making a trade. If they do think that they are close, I think that they can and should move on from Whisenhunt. I mean, we still don't know what he's going to be. Yes, he's this highly touted prospect. We've heard about this for a while, but we've been down this road before with Giants and prospects. Look at Marco Luciano. And I know that, pitching prospects have a little bit better of a track record than the Giants, position player prospects. But at the end of the day, give me the proven commodity over the prospect every single time. I would rather them go get, if they think they're close, go get Jack Flaherty. Why not? If you think you're close, go get Scherzer. See if he's got, maybe not at a super high dollar amount, but, if he's willing to take a little bit less than he has in recent years, go get him or Verlander even. If you think that you are close, why not just kick the tires on one of those guys, give him a 1-year deal, maybe a 1 year with a player option for the second year, if it works out kind of thing. Why not? And I think that you have the ability to kind of do that. And also, there's one guy that's still out there that I think might be an interesting fit for the Giants that hasn't been brought up yet, and that's Andrew Heaney. I think Andrew Heaney is a guy with really good strikeout pitches, and he has had some very rough years in the major leagues, but he's shown flashes. And I think that this Giants, as an organization, not just, I know that we've seen the pitching coaches transition a few times in recent years, but one thing remains the same is the Giants take on these reclamation projects and they turn them into something really solid. Ryan Vogelsong, the list is extensive, but Andrew Heaney, I think, could be the latest in that long lineage of reclamation projects that the Giants have undertaken as starting pitchers that they've turned into legitimate dudes in the second halves of their career. I also don't think you really need to go all in on that pitching. As you talked about Pete Alonso earlier, Santander is a really good option. And Jurickson Profar, who I personally can't stand on the Padres. I think that he is just the most annoying player in the world. But hey, if he's on your team, he's a little bit less annoying. And he had a hell of a season last year. There's no two ways about it. He had an absolute monster year last year. And I don't expect him to replicate that. But he is, a decent fielder. You could, that outfield, if you have Profar and Jung-Hoo Lee and Ramos, there's not a lot of fly balls that are dropping. You pair that with the super solid left side of the infield that is Adames and Chapman. And then I like Fitzgerald at second base. I think he's a slightly above average defender there compared to, below average at shortstop. The only real hole defensively would be, first base, but that's not even a real hole. Lamont's not bad. His mobility has gone down significantly in recent years, however. But he picks a pretty good ball there at first. So, and this is the recipe that the Giants have won World Series with, is defense and pitching, and then have a couple big bats in the middle of the lineup that can run into one. And you have that right now with Willy Adames. And obviously you would like another guy to come around. Ramos, I think, will be a close to 30 home run guy this year. And you still got Matt Chapman. So this lineup is much improved with Adames. And I think you can lean on that pitching a little bit more. I do think they are a true number 2 / ace 1B to Logan Webb's 1A away from being a legitimate contender, however.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. And I just want to kind of go back to your original comments in that, where are the Giants? Where are they in their phase right now? Are they in a window to compete, right? Because I think that's the question that with bringing in Willy Adames, obviously that was the number one need. It was glaringly obvious last year with Brandon Crawford not being there, with the offense just being just atrocious, anemic at times, where they couldn't do anything. So now you answered both of those check marks, right? Willy Adames comes in, he is a force on offense with the bat, and he is pretty serviceable, pretty good defensively as well. He's not going to lose you a game, I guess, is where I'm trying to go. So that left side of the infield is good. It's all good to go.
Solid.
But
solid.
I guess the question is, where are the Giants right now, right? Because if we're just looking at actions speaking louder than words, and you look at what they went and did and the contract negotiations with Corbin Burnes, that would lead me to believe that they don't think they're in a window for competing, that they don't think that they are close, right? And then also you have to look at the fact of the matter. The World Series champions, it pains me to say it, but it's the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're in your division. They're
Had to
not
bring it
going
up.
away, but they're not going away. You know what I mean? They're not
Yeah.
going away anytime soon. And I'm not saying that that is how, what you should base your operation on, but that's the fact of the matter, is that you are in a division right now that is so top heavy with the Giants, or I'm sorry, I wish the Giants were part of that, with the Dodgers, with the Padres, and then now with the Diamondbacks, man. I mean, you're kind of looking at this Giants team in that maybe they can spare another year for development. And it pains me to say that, because I want them to compete and I want them to go out there, and I firmly believe that Buster Posey wants to bring this Giants team back to its glory days, its glory form, right? But I don't think, like you mentioned earlier, that there isn't not one off season that can rebuild this team to be a competitor right now. There's a lot of pieces that need to kind of fall into place. One of them being the starting rotation. They need to see what the starting rotation is. And if you were to go and get Corbin Burnes, obviously right now, this starting rotation would be much better, much improved. But then you're kind of saying you're hitching yourself to Corbin Burnes for a long period of time, and you're trying to compete now. Again, they don't get him. I don't think that they're in that frame of mind right now. They're trying to see what they have in their young pitchers. On the offensive side of things, you're looking at Elliot Ramos. You're looking at Tyler Fitzgerald. And I like Elliot Ramos. I like what I saw from him, but he has been very inconsistent in his minor league career. So what is he going to do when there's tape on him? What is he going to do in his second full year of a San Francisco Giant? That is going to be very telling for his development and just to see how really good he is. Same thing with Tyler Fitzgerald. Same thing with Jung-Hoo Lee. Jung-Hoo Lee hasn't had a full season yet. He looked really good. He looked promising, but he hasn't had a full season yet, and he's still transitioning from playing in Korea to come into the major leagues. And that was such a big question mark in that, will his skill set transfer over to Major League Baseball? And we still don't necessarily know what the answer is to that. So again, like, you're kind of just looking at this Giants team in that, what is their expectation? What is the goal for 2025? And I don't think that it is to compete. I think it's to find out what you have, and then you build from there. And going into now this next phase of the offseason, because they missed out on Corbin Burnes and they have the money to spend, Pete Alonso can be a clear pivot. Pete Alonso or Anthony Santander, which one do you like more? I like more on that. But Pete Alonso can be the pivot. And again, the question has to be asked, where are you in your development process? Because bringing in Pete Alonso does technically block Bryce Eldridge from coming up and playing first base. I know there's things that could be moved around. I know that Bryce Eldridge can play in the outfield, and Pete Alonso can definitely switch over to DH. But again, that's where it all kind of comes back, in that, where are the Giants at in their phase of their franchise right now?
Yeah, I mean, you said, where are you? And growing up in the school of Polly Mack, my brain immediately went to, where are you? And I'm so sorry, I cannot sleep, I cannot dream tonight. Like, the Giants have nightmares in my head.
Yeah,
I go back and forth about this all the time. Like, I do not know what this team is going to do, but I do know that it keeps me up at night. And that you have, on one hand, you have all these young prospects that could come to fruition. If Jung-Hoo Lee hits and he is as good as advertised, and the bat to ball skills are superb, and he's one of the best leadoff hitters in baseball and covers all this ground at center field, phenomenal. Another guy I think is interesting is Grant McCray. I think if the McCralian comes around this year and he starts, he was phenomenal as a defender in right field last year, and obviously Mike Yastrzemski as well. But I mean, I think that a lot of this just depends on how these guys pan out. If Hayden Birdsong takes a big step forward, if all these things happen in the right way, the Giants, I think, could be a team that's contending for a wild card spot. And I think that's got to be the goal, is to at least be in the mix, right? Like, be in the mix for the wild card. Ultimately, every single Giants fan wants to get back to the postseason. I think that's the clear, first marker on the road back to getting back to what this franchise should and used to be. But last year, I kind of felt the same way going into the season. You had all these exciting, like, young pitching prospects that we didn't have too much tape on, at least in almost no tape on some of them in the big leagues, at least. And then none of them really panned out. Everybody on this pitching staff, except for Logan Webb, got hurt and missed significant time last year. That's the one thing I think you can count on this next year, is that you won't have injuries that are, just so devastating. Like the magnitude of the injuries that the Giants had last year, similar to the 49ers this year. If you're looking for a cross-sport comparison,
Oof,
you're just injuries all over the place constantly the whole season to really key guys. And you obviously the Blake Snell thing in the beginning of the season, maybe if Snell signs a month earlier, you don't have to wait until July for him to start pitching and winning games. And maybe just a couple more wins in the beginning of the season means that this team looks a little different and doesn't just wave the white flag halfway through September and call up all the young guys and just give them all this playing time, which weirdly enough is when the Giants started winning games last year. But there's so many things. Also, one guy we haven't brought up, Luis Matos. He had a down year last year, but we know that the talent is there. We've seen it. I think it's a confidence thing with him. And I have to imagine that Buster Posey is going to have a little bit better of a feel than Farhan did for how much it affects a guy when you call him up and fill him with a vote of confidence and publicly say, this is my center fielder for the foreseeable future, and then send him down 2 weeks later. Like that's got to just absolutely kill a guy's confidence. And I think that that's important. You got to be able to nurture the mentals of these young guys. We've seen other Giants who have been talented, had just talent oozing out their pores. Like Tyler Beede is one that I think of. He had phenomenal stuff, could never figure out how to get it to translate to strikeouts and wins, and he would just lose composure on the mound. And that's all mental. None of that's physical. And so the Giants need to do a better job of kind of bringing these young players along than they did in the past. And I think that Buster's going to be much better at doing that than Farhan was. I think it was a little bit of a lack of human connection in that development aspect. And that's not a secret. I think everybody knows, the number thing with Farhan and all that. But yeah, I think that's going to be a much that is what it mostly hinges on. You asked about Santander versus Alonso, and honestly, I don't really think it matters too much. I think Santander would be a little bit better just because he is a switch hitter.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately this team is either way. You sign that bat, how many more wins does that give this team? Maybe 3, 4 throughout the season max. Is that enough to really change the outcome of the season? Maybe you sneak in as the last wild card team, but ultimately, I don't know, to answer your question in a really long-winded, typical Triple E fashion. I have no idea where the hell this team stands. Last year, I was so confident with I thought that last offseason was a great offseason in the sense that they made so many smart additions to this team. And the Blake Snell signing, Jung-Hoo Lee, I thought that this team was getting back to its roots of pitching and defense, and it really excited me. I even told you at the start of the season, I think this Giants team has the potential to win 90 games. And how insane does that sound right now? But also, if everybody clicks, if Hayden Birdsong has a year, Harrison bounces back, Webb does Webb things, and you throw in one of these other young arms, say Wisenhunt comes up and is effective, or Mason Black turns it on, or Keaton Wynn finds something again, any one of those guys could just change the entire fortune of this Giants team, especially if Robbie Ray works out, if Jordan Hicks can pitch more than half a season effectively without his arm falling off. There's a lot of things that could happen to bump the Giants up a couple wins. And if that happens, then yeah, maybe signing a big bat like Santander or Alonso does make a difference, because if you get those 3 or 4 extra wins from that bat, plus the extra couple wins from one of these pitchers coming around, that's actually kind of, then you're talking about 90 win territory potentially. And that is a big deal, I personally think. So this Giants team is an enigma. It's the biggest question mark, one of the biggest question marks in baseball. And I think that's what makes this team so damn frustrating to watch, because the talent is there. The potential is there. It just needs to click. It just needs to work out. And for various reasons throughout the years, missed signings, injuries, all these other things, Blake Snell coming in at the wrong time, like it just hasn't clicked. But it's I feel like the recipe is there, like the ingredients for the recipe are there. Maybe you're missing 1 or 2 things you got to still go get from the store, but I think that they're close. I do think that they're close, and they have a direction, which is something that you couldn't say about them for years, up until recently, that they didn't really seem like they had much of a direction other than like, let's try and play the numbers game every single season. So there's a lot to look forward to with this Giants team, I think, in this coming season. I think you still do got to go sign somebody. You got to go get somebody. There's plenty of names still out there. Some have qualifying offers attached, some don't. Alonso has a qualifying offer, and so does Santander. Another guy with a qualifying offer that wouldn't be a terrible signing, I think, might be a guy like Nick Pivetta. Could be another option from the Boston Red Sox. But again, you're kind of splitting hairs at this point. Like these. You got a lot of guys out there that you can still fill the roster out with, at least.
Yeah, and I guess it's the question of, all right, if they are developing, all right, then that's part of it, right? That's part of the equation. That's part of the recipe, so to speak. But I guess is, where would you want to see the improvement from the outside, right? Because we've talked about so much about the starting pitchers and their expectations and their potential, right? That they can. Sorry, I was getting a phone call. Their expectations and all of that, right? So you look at the starting pitching. Do you want, like, would you even entertain bringing in a Justin Verlander, bringing in a Jack Flaherty, bringing in a Max Scherzer? Does that even make sense? Does that go into the plans, or would you be more inclined to spend for a bat, or does none of this happen and we're just talking in circles and this roster is going to be what it is going into spring training?
Ultimately, I think this is pretty much what the roster is going to look like. I think they maybe do sign one other guy. I think that you probably still need a backup utility infielder. Casey Schmidt is that guy right now, and I don't really think you want him playing shortstop, nor do I think you want him playing second base to move Tyler Fitzgerald over to playing shortstop. I think you got to go look to sign someone to play that backup role or that utility role. And the most glaring, obvious, best friend reunion that you can make is Ha-Seong Kim. And that's out there still. But I think that for a backup utility guy, he's going to be asking for probably more than the Giants are going to want to spend. So you got to start looking around. And I mean, this isn't going to excite anyone, but I think maybe you get a Jose Iglesias from the Mets on the back end of his career, or a Nicky Lopez from the White Sox looking to get out of Chicago as your backup, which is, again, it feels a lot like Nick Ahmed, but at least he's your backup, not your starter. I think if you have a backup like, one of those guys who has a good glove, and Jose Iglesias actually had a really good season last year with in minimal action with the Mets. But not too maybe really good as a bit of a stretch, but not a bad season in minimal action with the Mets. So I think that's an option. He had a WAR. I think I definitely
go Casey Schmidt after above all of those options that you just laid out.
And
there.
Maybe you do.
I'd rather have Casey out there.
And maybe you do. But another interesting thing that I have been thinking about, solving the first base situation, because I do think that maybe Pete Alonso is a little bit too rich for him. Maybe he wants to stay in New York, very similar to how Arson Judge wanted to stay in New York. And maybe he just wants to be there. I mean, the Mets are obviously much closer to winning something meaningful than the Giants are. They were just in the National League Championship Series. They lost, but they were there, and the Giants weren't. So I think that's a factor as well for a guy later in his career like Pete Alonso. He's played his whole career out there in New York. I think that you would, like we've talked about before, you have to do something to pull him here, probably outbid the Mets for him. And one, are the Mets being outbid by anybody for any player at this point in time with the ownership that they have and how much money they're throwing around? And two, are the Giants willing to get into a bidding war with the Mets? And I think the answer to those things, I think that just all says Pete Alonso is staying in New York. And so that's why I feel like slightly Santander would be the better move. I think he's more likely to be a guy to maybe want to come out here than Pete Alonso, just, reading the tea leaves and things like that. But I think that if you're going to sign Max Scherzer or Justin Verlander, it is entirely contingent on signing one of these bats first. Because Scherzer without another big bat in this lineup, or Verlander without another big bat in this lineup, is just like a fun thing to go out to the yard once a week to go see.
It's
not
contradictory. It's contradictory to everything that has kind of been said to us this offseason. And then
absolutely
they're like, no, yeah, we love our young pitchers, but let's go get a guy on his way out. Like
exactly.
That doesn't make sense. It kind of, I mean, it can make sense in the sense of maybe you bring him in here to be a mentor to these young guys. That would make sense, like kind of similar to what we had with Randy Johnson, right? Randy Johnson came in here at the back end of his career, and he was kind of a mentor to some of the young pitchers in the Giants organization at that time. So yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, it's really interesting just to see all of this happen. You talk about Pete Alonso, and I think that Pete Alonso is going to end up with the Mets. I mean, last postseason when he hit that 3-run shot in the top of the 9th against the Brewers, I mean, in that moment, I was like, all right.
Why would you leave
he's
that?
A Met.
Why would you leave that and go back to Oracle where they can't even fill up the park on
and it was an Oppo taco, right? That wouldn't have gone out. Actually, let me track back. I don't know if that one would have won out. But you factor in, the Bay breeze and the fact that you have to hit it over that monstrous wall in right field. How many feet is that? What is it? 24 feet?
I think it's about feet? That. Yeah.
Yeah. I forget what they pay, who they pay homage to. I don't remember if it was 24 or 44. So yeah, anybody in the YouTube chat, Mike Val knows how long or how tall that wall is in right field. But Pete Alonso,
21,
I mean, that was the
21 feet.
21 feet? Why 21 feet? Why 21 feet?
I don't know.
Yeah, see, Tacky put 24 because 24 makes sense.
I just did a quick Google search, but maybe the Google is wrong.
They paid homage to Jeff Kent. Like what are they doing? What are they doing with a 21-foot wall? That's crazy.
21 Savage, maybe.
Oh, right. Okay. But yeah, man. So you look at Pete Alonso, and again, I just don't see it happening. If it happens, I would be probably more shocked than I was when the Giants didn't get Corbin Burnes, because just again, Pete Alonso coming in here, you saw that moment in the postseason. I thought that solidified his legacy as a Met. It does sound like there's contract negotiations, but he turned down a 7-year $158 for the Mets in 2023. So what kind of money is he looking at? You know what I mean? And if it's reaching like 200 million, because I was thinking, okay, you can get him to get the highest AAV. You can get him for a 5-year at this point in the offseason, because I feel like the market is competitive, but it's kind of he overshot what he thought his market value was. So I was thinking like more along the lines of I think it was 145 for 5 years, and I would give him the highest AAV as a first baseman, like something like that. But that's market price. Yeah. That's market price. That's not Giants price. You got to pay higher than that.
Exactly.
Because that might be where he goes with the Mets, right? So the fact that the Mets offered up a 7-year $158. I mean, what has changed now? I mean, he's a year older. I understand that, but what has changed now to where they won't go back to that figure, and maybe that figure is still on the table? I just don't see it happening. If the Giants didn't want to put out the money in the pitcher because of they felt high on their young pitching, if they didn't want to go out and spend on Corbin Burnes because of their young pitching, it just, again, I don't see why they would go out and spend for a first baseman that would potentially block your future bat. Exactly. Who is also a lefty in Bryce Eldridge, and he's kind of climbed up through the ranks of the minor leagues. He finished in AAA last year. He's not going to start in AAA this season. I think he's going to start in Richmond. But yeah, man. I mean, it's really interesting. I just don't see Pete Alonso leaving the Mets. I don't see him leaving New York, and regardless of Santander being linked to the Mets as well, I just don't. The Mets are going to get one of those guys, and I think it's more likely that it's Pete Alonso.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think Pete Alonso stays there. That home run in the postseason. I mean, when you're the vibes of the Mets in the postseason. I mean, you got Grimace out there in the outfield. I mean, what does Oracle Park have to lure a guy away from that. I mean, the vibes at Oracle Park have not been vibing the last couple of years. Yeah. And why would you want to leave that environment? If you're, in New York and you're on the good team and you're a major key component of that team, that's got to be a big piece of it too. I mean, you feel like you're on top of the world, I'd assume. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the Fangraphs, the free agency estimator on Fangraphs, and they got even a lower projected total than you threw out there. It was 5 years for 125 is what they're estimating his contract to be at, with an AAV of 25 million. But
for Pete Alonso, for Pete
Alonso. But I would not be surprised if the Mets just kept their same offer from last year on the table and said, "Here you go, same thing." They he pretty much turned in the same exact season as he did the year before, and I think he'll probably do the same thing again next year. Pete Alonso has been a pretty predictable player, and I do think he stays with the Mets, which means the Giants are going to have to figure out something else. And there's not too many exciting options at first base, and which makes me think, after you get rid of Pete Alonso, which makes me think that this team is probably going to continue rolling out what they got. And ultimately, I think that leads to a very interesting situation where we might see a Marco Luciano playing some first base, because I don't know where the hell else this guy is going to go. I mean, you can't just carry a guy who only is a DH on this roster. You got to play at least one position, right? Yep. You can't, unless you're Shohei, you can't just be a DH. That's not okay if you're right. Marco Luciano hitting 230 or whatever he did last year with like one home run. Like you can't do that. So I think in order to get him more consistent playing time, just to give him his shot, because I think he deserves one after all these years, we gotta at least see what he's got. Maybe not so much deserves it as the Giants need to play this out to make sure that if this really isn't something that's going to work, you got to know for sure that this isn't going to work. Because could you imagine if the Giants just give up on Marco Luciano, send him elsewhere, and he hits after all these years of us being told he's going to be the cornerstone piece that the franchise has been missing and all these things, comes up, looks terrible with the Giants, and then goes somewhere else and is successful? That would just be horrible for Giants fans. So I think you need to let him have some consistent at-bats, and if he falls flat, and you move on. And you go back to Lamont Wade and you limp along until you can get Bryce Eldridge up here. But with the way that Eldridge has been absolutely flying through the minor leagues, I do not see why he would not be up here. Potentially, I know that this sounded insane, and I said this even last year. I don't know if you remember, I said this when we were talking in one of our every 3-month conversations. I had said, I think Bryce Eldridge could be up by the end of the 2025 season. And it sounded insane to say at the time. I don't think it's so insane to say right now. And maybe he's not, going to be brought up and just takes the job full time and runs with it. Maybe he needs to be mixed in still. Maybe it's not, the first time he's going to get called up and not get sent back down. I think that maybe there's a little bit of that too, but I don't think he's as far away as it might seem when you look at, how old he is and his service time and all those things. So I do think that Bryce Eldridge, obviously, like everybody else does, he's the future of this franchise at first base. And you just gotta get there and make sure that you still got enough of a team around when he's finally at the peak of his powers. And I think that's the direction that this team is thankfully steering towards. They're headed down that road a little bit, but it's there's been a lot of frustrating moments to get here with all these missed free agents. I mean, you start to think back through the years and the list just of guys that they've missed out on, just dating back to Bryce Harper, which for me is the biggest miss of them all, because it was kind of pre these insane, massive, $750 million guaranteed type contracts. Yeah. I mean, Bryce Harper signing that, what was it, $350 million guaranteed when he did? That looks like an absolute steal right now. So right. You start to think back to those types of contracts, those guys, the Giancarlo Stantons, the Arson Judges, the Carlos Correas, and thankfully, I mean, maybe not Correa anymore because he got Adames, but there's the team of players that the Giants missed out on is just awesome. And it would be so good to have one of those guys actually on the Giants instead of just on this theoretical, hypothetical, what could have been squad that's, floating in the ether somewhere.
Yeah, you were talking about Marco Luciano. You started a conversation in the YouTube chat. So I just kind of want to put up one of these comments. Otis Bird had a question. Didn't the Giants have Luciano play some outfield at the end of this past season in AAA? I don't believe he played in the outfield in AAA, but the plan was that he was going to play at the Arizona complex. Is that they were going to start putting him out there in the outfield. Don't know how that's gone, so we'd have to check back in on that. But I just want to keep that conversation there with Marco Luciano, right? And I do think that I don't know if it's too far gone for Marco Luciano. He's still young in his development, so maybe there's still a chance, right? But with Buster Posey now in the fold and being a player and understanding, obviously he was cut from a different cloth and he was a generational type talent behind the plate for the Giants. But I think that he understands more so than anyone what it takes to progress through the ranks of the minor leagues. And he has said at the winter meetings that with Bryce Eldridge that he wants to take his time. Like, he doesn't want to rush him. So then that's where I also do look at Pete Alonso in that, okay, maybe they can bring him in to kind of prolong that window for Bryce Eldridge. Cause I think Bryce Eldridge is only like 21 years old, man. I
think he's not even 21 yet.
He might be 20. He might be 20 years old. He's young. So it'd be really interesting to see how all that unfolds.
Yeah,
but
he's 20 years old, October 20th, 2004.
Okay,
that
so
he'll
turn 21 at the end of this season. So and when was his birthday?
October 20th, 2004.
October 20th. So technically, he can have his first beer if the Giants were to go all the way to the World Series.
He could enjoy that champagne shower.
Yeah, he can for sure. But so Madison Bumgarner couldn't enjoy it.
Nope.
Just shout out to Mad Bum, who I think that he's going to have a integral part in this Giants team. Him and maybe Brandon Crawford at some point in the future. But Madison Bumgarner sounded like he was going to be involved some point this spring, so that'll be really interesting. But just going back to Marco Luciano, because that's where the conversation was. Do you foresee him? Like, do you want him to be? I guess that's two different questions. One, do you foresee him on the 26-man breaking camp? And two, do you want to see that?
I think he is on the 26-man, and I do want to see it. I want to see him succeed. I more than anything would just absolutely love if Marco Luciano came back and proved everybody wrong about all the things that he's been kind of lacking. The lack of launch angle in his swing, the lack of being able to actually lift the ball over a major league fence and to be able to hit major league pitching. His, obviously we don't even need to see him at shortstop or up the middle or second base, anywhere in the middle of the infield. I think we have seen more than enough of that last season. But something like having him play first base, I think that you should give him some reps. I think that he needs to have consistent at-bats to be able to tell what this guy truly is. I think we still don't know, because again, much like all these other prospects, he's been called up and sent down a bunch of times, and that's gotta mess with your confidence. Again, if you're a guy who has been told you are the cornerstone of this franchise, we have so much faith in you, you're going to be the guy to lead us, and you go up and you fall flat and they pivot that fast. Like, did they really have that faith in you? And that's got to creep in and make things hard for you to actually go out there and play baseball unencumbered. And I think that for Luciano, you have to give him the ability to try and do that and let him start the season at first base, because then if he falls flat and it doesn't work, you still have an opportunity to pivot and try and do something else there before the end of the season. So I think that'll be interesting to see what they do there. And I mean, one other young guy that we haven't talked about as far as just this young crop of guys, Reggie, we brought up a trade earlier possibility with Whisenhunt. I think another guy who could be lumped in there is Reggie Crawford. And so I don't think that if you don't get a bat in this offseason, still think you might be able to go get one by trading some of these young arms, because there's plenty of teams out there who will trade you a rental bat or a guy that maybe is going to for sure leave that franchise at the end of the season, an expiring contract. And the Giants can maybe do what they tried to do with Snell, and what they successfully did with Chapman: trade for a guy, bring him in here, if you think he'll re-sign, maybe you make a move like that and you go get that stopgap at first base. Again, Reggie Crawford and Carson Whisenhunt sound great, but again, I would much rather always have the proven commodity over the prospect any given day of the week.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how the Giants and this new group this new front office navigates all of that, because this is a interesting time for the Giants. I don't think that they're in a window to contend. I think that they are still working through the developmental process, and that might linger into 2025. But, you do believe that, again, what we've talked about is it now at least seems that there is a roadmap. It seems like we're not just driving around and just hoping to find our destination. There's directions. We know where we're going now. And that's what Buster Posey and this front office brings now. So it'll be really interesting to follow that along. We'll have to see if the Giants make any other splashes. It started off with a bang with Willy Adames, and then it just nothing. And I know Giants. We've been fiending for it so damn much, in that we got Willy Adames. We're like, oh my God, we're gonna get more. We're gonna get more. And it just stopped, right? So it'll be interesting. I don't think that the Giants are completely done, but I don't think there's going to be a huge splash. I think there's going to be minimal, maybe someone else being brought in, maybe a Jack Flaherty, maybe something along those lines. I know we were talking back and forth. We're going to get Josh Bell, and he ends up signing with the Nationals. So even he's off the board at this point in time.
I had my backup options as Josh Bell and Carlos Santana, both gone now. So
they're all gone.
Now what do you do?
Literally, I think that the only guy that is left that is serviceable at first base is Pete Alonso. I mean,
Anthony
I think
Rizzo is still out there. If I can offer you Anthony Rizzo,
why do you want Anthony Rizzo at 35 years old? He's like 35 years old now.
I mean, you can always use a paisan in the lineup. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just got to sneak this in there, since I did come from the school of Polymac, and I know how much your boss loves 80s references to music. You know what I mean? So I just have to sneak this in there about how this Giants team as a whole, I was trying to think of in the vein of Polymac, why just the song that totally encapsulates the San Francisco Giants experience right now. And the one that I settled on is Every Breath You Take by The Police. It's such a sense of constant pressure, longing, strong desire for this breakthrough that just never seems to come.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm giving you. The Police, one of the greatest 80s bands of all time. Shout out Polymac. and you know what I mean? Like that is just, for me, what I feel whenever I watch this Giants team. Like, you are just, it feels like they are close. It has felt like they are close for at least, the last season, but prior to that, maybe not. But the 107 win season, if you put stock into that, which was really weird and a complete anomaly. But I think that perfectly sums up the Giants right now is the Police. You know what I mean?
I think the Giants winning 107 was maybe the worst thing that could have happened to them.
Oh, absolutely. It made us just mar the mediocrity for another couple of years.
Yeah, in retrospect, winning 107 was the worst thing that could have happened to this Giants team, because the
Farhan
rebuild
and Kapler an extension.
But who knows? Maybe Buster Posey wasn't ready at that time to take on the reins. So everything happens for a reason, my friend. Everything happens for a reason. But it'll be really interesting to see what happens with the Giants moving forward, and we'll continue to talk about them all off season. I'm sure you'll come on to the podcast once again as we get closer to spring training. We'll break all this down and see what the roster is, what the roster is constructed as. I do hope that they have a solution at first base, because I like Lamont Wade Jr. I like what he brings to the table, but he doesn't bring what a first baseman is supposed to bring to the lineup, and that is the power. Unless he can find that somehow. I know he was dealing with a lot of injuries last year, but that is the story of Lamont Wade Jr. in his career.
They're all lower body injuries.
And they're all lower body injuries.
And that does not sound good for adding power.
And where does power generate? From the lower body. So that's kind of where you can see his fall off with the power. I mean, there's no surprise in that. So hopefully he can get healthy, and hopefully he can find a little bit more of that power. But again, you can't. Your best ability is availability, and you can't do anything, and you can't drive in runs, and you can't get on base as much as possible if you're not on the field and if you're not in the lineup every day. And he's just not an everyday player. And I think that that's something that we learned under Gabe Kapler. That's something that we also learned, and that Bob Melvin learned, because they wanted to have him out there, in I think it was at the end of May or it was at the end of April where he was starting to play really good, and then they were like, nope, let's make him an everyday player. Started playing every day, and then he gets hurt, and that's just the fact of the matter. So you can't have
it's
that.
Always the hamstring with him. It's always the hamstring.
You can't have that kind of hole in your lineup, especially at the first base position. So that's why I'm all for Pete Alonso, but we'll have to see. We'll have to wait and see what ends up happening at that position. But Eric, thank you for stopping by. Really appreciate it, man. I know I kept you in the waiting room. Tacky jumped in there, was like, dude, I wonder how long Walter's going to keep him waiting in the waiting room and how long their guests are going to be. You weren't in there for too long. You were in there for
it's all good. I was enjoying the show, man. I was enjoying the show.
You were in there for like 5 minutes. Well, because you talk a lot. So
I do. I'm very long-winded. You know this.
I had to get my words in before I brought you in. So you were fine marinating in the waiting room.
Exactly. I talk a lot, but I can listen sometimes too. You know what I mean? And because I'm such a good listener,
you're a better talker.
You got to pay off that tease that you gave at the beginning of paying off you got to give the people the New Year's resolutions, Walter.
Oh yeah, dude, I got to give you the resolutions. Yeah, look, see, we talked way too long, and I forgot about the resolution. So what is your New Year's resolution? Whether it's you, the person, like, are you gonna try to go snowboarding more and not break your leg, or what's your deal? What are you gonna do?
So
you gonna shave? You gonna shave?
My New Year's resolution? No, absolutely not gonna shave.
Clean up a little bit, Eric.
Absolutely not gonna shave. But my see, I've been growing the lettuce out and everything too. You know,
dude, have you seen my hair?
Dude, yeah, you got the little ponytail going and everything.
Dude, my hair looks wild. Hold on, I'm about to show you right now. Hold on, keep talking.
Okay, well,
I'm gonna show you this. Look at this.
Woo! You got the whole bun going back.
Yeah,
there.
Bro. It is crazy.
Yeah, mine's not much different right now. It looks like a giant mop. But my New Year's resolution should be much the same as the San Francisco Giants. It is quite simply get more athletic. And you kind of touched on something there, because I was going to loop this all the way back to how do you get more athletic? There's lots of different ways to do it. For me, I got to just go snowboarding more. I need 30 to 40 days on the mountain to get my legs in shape so I can kind of coast for the next few months and not have to do leg day at the gym. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And much like me needing to get more athletic, these Giants desperately need to get more athletic. After the bases got bigger and we made all the jokes about how much this was actually going to happen, like how much this was actually going to affect stolen bases in Major League Baseball. So every other team steal a ton of bases, and the Giants do absolutely nothing on the base paths. You got fast guys on the roster all over the place. Get into training camp and start doing some base stealing drills. Figure out how to steal some bases. Get more athletic. It's that simple.
Yeah, I like that. Especially for you. You need to get more athletic.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true.
You've put on pounds since last time I talked to you.
I have.
I have too.
I've been eating good. You know what I mean? Been eating good. It's the holidays. You know.
Yeah, have.
I've just been enjoying all the food.
Yeah, you have, dude. Danny checks in on your resolution. You need to give him the damn cord.
Danny needs to respond to my text and come get a damn beer with me then sometime.
Well, you want to loop him into a beer to get the cord? He just wants the cord.
Exactly.
He just wants a business transaction. He doesn't want to hang out.
Nope, gotta hang out. At least requires one beer from Danny Dunn. I'm willing to drive down to the peninsula to go see him.
Who's buying the beer is the question. Is it Danny or is it you?
I think it depends on who the more employed one is at the time. whoever's more gainfully employed by
the stutter in your voice just says what the answer was. You're Oh man, dude, I miss these conversations. We'll definitely have you on again, and maybe we'll do a three-way with a old school three-way with me, you, and Danny.
Papa and Lund?
Yeah, the caboose pistol. Yeah. Oh, dude, miss that segment. But yeah, man, I appreciate you stopping by, and I do have a cat question for you. Do you have a cat? Do you have a cat with you? I do have a
cat. He is a feral little demon, but yeah, he just decided to move in one day, and then he's mean as hell. So what am I gonna do? Kick him out? He's gonna fight me.
I have a question for you. One is it normal for your cat to like chill in their cat box, like just to sit in it?
Not in my experience. No, that's not. I mean, I don't think that's a problem. But
because at the beginning of the show, my cat was in the cat box and was just chilling in there, and I was just like, Hannah came and asked, "Oh, hey, is she going?" I'm like, "I think so. Like she's just in there, and I don't think she went." So So that's a concern of mine. And then also, since you're a cat parent, what do you do about the smelly farts, bro? Because
Oh, that's just a kitten thing, man. They'll grow out of it, hopefully. Happens when they're young, happens when they're old.
I swear, the farts are gnarly.
Oh, dude, my dog is 13 and also has the worst smelly farts in the entire world. And what's more hilarious is as he's gotten older, they've gotten louder. So like you hear him now. Like normally the animal farts are like the silent but deadly, but no, he just like he'll wake himself up from them and everything, startle himself, and it's just bad when they're young, bad when they're old. But yeah, I think Tacky's onto something there.
Tacky chiming in, man. Yeah, stop blaming the cat, Walter. It's funny because the first couple of times, like Hannah would look at me and she's like, "Did you just fart?" I'm like, "No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me." And then she's just looking at me and I'm looking at her like, "No, it wasn't. No, it was the cat. It was the cat."
Or maybe it was Hannah all along.
Oh wow, dude. No, she's gonna kick your ass for saying that.
I know she will.
Yeah, she will kick your ass. But yeah, no, the farts are smelly and dude, when she drops a deuce, it's very reminiscent of when you let one rip in the studio and you pissed off everyone. You remember that? Oh yeah.
I forgot about that.
Let you get out of here.
I forgot about Murph and Mac doing an entire 15 minutes on me farting in the studio. God, just rip on the guy with GI problems for his bad smelling farts.
Dude, yeah, but who that is diabolical. All right, you let one rip and then you walk out of the studio. You can't open the windows.
Do you know
that's diabolical?
Do you know the demand?
And then you close the door and you didn't even say excuse me.
Do you know the demand of working for Brian Murphy? I had to get some kind of revenge at some point. For as much as this guy every day, I have no voice on that show. I can't speak a damn word. All you can do is see me waving my arms in the small little tiny producer cam that's off hidden in the corner of the KMBR live stream. And Murph just can sit there and just have a field day with me and all the eclecticness that is my life, whether I'm having a special fungi related adventure or whatever it is, or riding a scooter after a book signing with one arm after drinking maybe a few too many cocktails at a Brian Murphy book signing. There's plenty of instances where Murph just let me have it on air. I had to get him back in some way.
So you fart and just try to have him pass out from the smell, dude. Oh my God, that was incredible. I remember when I was there. I think I had like just walked into the studio and everybody just started screaming. I'm like, what's going on? Like, why is everybody? It is incredible. It is incredible stuff. But dude, always those are great memories, and I always cherish them. But Hannah has spoken. It's time. We're done.
Right.
We're done. Yeah,
right.
We're done. So we're gonna wrap this thing up. Eric, thank you for stopping by the show again, man. I can't thank you enough, and just your friendship over the years means a lot to me. And we'll continue to have these conversations on the podcast, off the podcast. We'll stay in touch 100%. Everybody, if you want to check out Eric's stuff, go ahead and go to the Locked On Postcast, right, Eric? Locked On San Francisco Postcast.
Yeah, the audio version, you can find it wherever you download or wherever you get any of your podcasts, Apple Pod, Spotify, wherever. Locked On, if you're looking for a Giants postcast, it's Locked On Giants. That's where the postcast lives. I also contribute to Locked On Warriors and Locked On 49ers. I'll be doing both of those shows later today. We'll be talking a lot about the future for the 49ers with all of their erosion from the inside out, and the Warriors, just the enigma that is the Warriors, much like the Giants, seem to have the pieces, sort of. Sometimes when Jonathan Kuminga looks like he can play with Steph, it looks great. When he can't, it looks really bad. What the hell is that team? I don't know what that team is either. So, but we'll break it down every night, and we go live after every single Giants, Niners, and Warriors game. The YouTube version is Locked On Sports San Francisco. You'll get all three shows on that one YouTube channel. And
where can they find you on Twitter?
On Twitter, it's at Erik _Engle, ERIK. Very important. The good Norwegian way to spell it, ERIK _ENGLE.
All right, there you have it. Eric Engle of the Locked On Podcast Network. And I am Walter Icodoseta signing off. Passion for the Pastime. Hope you guys had a good one this afternoon. And we'll have one more show tomorrow to end the year with a bang. Might have a special guest for you, still in the works of that, but I'll let you guys know as soon as I find out. So follow me on Twitter. See the handle there at Walleezy. That's WALLEEZZY. Can't make that more complicated for everyone to find. But Walleezy, all double letters up until till you get to the L's and the E's and the Z's. Why? See, now I made it complicated.
Yeah,
now I made it confusing.
Everybody.
WALLEEZZY. Walleezy. If you guys don't follow me already on Twitter and X, and remember to give me a like. Hit the like button here, hit the subscribe button, and set your notifications. Share the link. Let everybody know. Bring the family. Bring your friends. It's a good time. It's a lot of fun. Bring the cat. Bring your cats.
Bring the cat.
Content. My cat has not taken over the stream yet, but she's getting closer and closer.
Oh, dude, mine almost knocked me completely out. He muted my mic one time. I remember that. Jumped on my soundboard and muted my mic. That was fun.
That was like one of your first shows, man. Yeah, she stops by like when I'm prepping. She's like right here, and then she comes and like rubs against my foot, and then sometimes she'll be in her little area where she has her food, so it's like 5 feet away. She's inching closer. We're gonna get cat content in 2025. That's gonna be my resolution. Cat content on Passion for the Pastime. So Eric, thank you for stopping by, man, and thank everybody for stopping by in the chat. Rockin' New Era, Lori, Hannah, she's here because she has to be. No, she enjoys the shows. Tacky, who else stopped by? Otis was here earlier. 415 West. Thank you guys all for stopping by. Mike Val, of course. One of the regulars here on Passion for the Pastime. Yeah, Danny Dunn, that's our guy. George stopped by. I think George was new to the channel, so welcome into Passion for the Pastime, and thank you all for stopping by. EB, of course, was in here. Jim also. Everybody stopping by in the Passion for the Pastime. The Passion for the Pastimers. Still gotta find a word for my followers, Eric. But we'll figure that out.
We can workshop one.
We'll workshop one off air. So I'll let you guys go. Have a good one. We'll have one more show to end out the year, end out 2024 with a bang tomorrow. Time still pending, but it'll most likely be around the same time, 2 p.m. Make sure you follow me on X and Twitter for that information. You guys have a good one and set your notifications. You guys have a good one. Be safe and talk to you next time.